Well, good evening and welcome to LTV's Homegrown. And this has really been a lot of fun putting this whole thing together and being a part of this new opportunity here on LTV. My name is Harry Wareing from 92.9 and 96.9 EHM, and it's a pleasure to be here with some of the most talented people on Eastern Long Island. And tonight we
Oh,
welcome Inda Eaton. How are you?
ah, Harry, as we said, it's all relative, but good.
It's a different
It's
time.
good.
It's a loaded question these days. You really don't know, and everyone's going through different things, but you're getting through the past few months and you're doing all right.
You know, yes, the bottom line is yes. And I think the difference on the why is A, we're healthy right now, which is great, our household. But I just love our community. We live in the most hip street, man. We got our own little sovereign nation on our street. We got really kind of our own government right there on the street. Just we that was before this.
Yeah.
So we had close relations and then it got real. And I think when you go through something this cataclysmic, I think the conversations get real. And we've had to do like that sleepover that the I talk about it in music, which is in our line of work, we go on tour and so we're pajama friendly. Like we've had sleepovers. Our neighborhood had to get pajama friendly. There's no pretense. It is just right on your door, and we all bound
That's
together,
great.
banded together, and it's been beautiful. That's been the difference maker.
Yeah, I think that's the key through all of this is it's nice to see communities pull together and you realize that it still exists and everyone has differences and this and
Yeah.
that, but everyone knows, hey, especially in the first few weeks of this, it was nice to see people realize, all right, we're in this together. We don't really know what's going on, but we'll figure it out together. And as time goes on, we're kind of still in this a little bit months later, but we're figuring it out. And tonight, I want to chat with you a little bit more about. So we've had you on the EHM Local before. We talk about different gigs and shows, but I really want to kind of get to know you a little bit more and see what kind of how you got here. I think one of the best things about Long Island musicians in Eastern Long Island is most people didn't grow up out here. Some did, and that's cool. But a lot of people moved here for a reason. And I was curious, how long have you been out on Long Island?
I've been out here in Long Island since about 2003. And you bring up a great point. I think about this quite a bit. How did we get here and how do we make that work? And I've mentioned this. It's been a lot in the press that we put out with some of the projects because it's so part of it. And I am from the West. I'm
Yeah.
not from here. I grew up in Wyoming. I grew up in Arizona. I bounced back and forth between California. I was actually born in California.
Oh, wow.
And much like you see those kids on the jitney going back and forth to their custodial parents, I was on the airplane. And
How old were you
uh,
when your parents
so
did when you were going back
they
and forth?
started divorcing. It's the 70s. I think that was a thing. So they started divorcing, and my parents were married and divorced a couple of times. Let's say like at age 6, and I had both my sets of grandparents lived in Wyoming, so I was already going to visit them like at 6 years old by myself on an
Wow,
airplane.
that's an experience. My
It
goodness.
really was. I think that set the tone. So I was. How about this? I was always going back and forth. I am from the West. I can't even separate that. And then I ended up marrying a New Yorker, which is fascinating because well, I just have to ask, where are you from? Because I'm going to break you. I'm going to Leslie Stahl you. I'm going to take the
Well,
60
I'm
minute.
from Long Island,
Where,
and
but up or here?
right in the middle of Suffolk County.
Okay.
So I've kind of seen a little bit. I remember when I first started working out east, it was like a different world where
Mm,
you drive around and you'd be like, I'm not on Long Island anymore. This is a
no.
whole other beast, and it's beautiful out on the east. I remember getting lost in the South Fork, trying to figure. This was before Waze and all of that.
Yeah.
But it's interesting how different people move out here for different reasons. When did you meet your wife?
I met her in the 90s, and that's in a nutshell. It's a long, convoluted drama, as all good love stories are. But the reality was, I came out to play at the Talk House.
Okay.
Peter had me out.
Wow. All right. So wow, this is
Oh
really a
no, I
local.
came out. The truth is, I came out for music. It was always known that if you're going to do something in New York, you come out to play the Talk House. And one of our records was called "Never Too Late to Fly." We recorded it in New Orleans, and we had connections to the subdudes. My mentor, Spencer Boren, he just passed away this past year. Such a great mentor. Anyway, their family very connected to the subdudes and the
Yeah.
Radiators. So I made a record in New Orleans. We had Tommy Malone from the Subdudes played on it.
Wow.
Johnny Vodakovich of New Orleans drumming renown played on it. And Reggie Scanlon of the Radiators played on it. And so in talking to them about getting the word out about this
Yeah.
record, they all told me about the Talk House.
Wow.
So
Well, who knew that would change your life in a other way too?
it
My
did. It
goodness.
was between breaks, and in a similar situation like this, kind
Yeah.
of between breaks, getting to know everybody. They would say, "Oh, well, if you're going to go play in New York, you got to go out to Amagansett. You got to play in the Talk House." And I think they put in a good word, or else I was just dumbass enough to say, "Oh, I'm going to see if I can go play at the Talk House," and that's what happened. I was on a Borders Books tour
Oh, wow.
because it made it
Borders,
convenient.
yes.
I know. Well, what a great deal. So you go play at bookstores and this and that, and so came out here to play, and I met Emery.
That's great. When did you start being a child of divorce and moving around so much?
That's my.
Not
It'll be my book, child. I think it's interesting. I think it
COD.
says so much. Look, it says so much, and it helps. I think explain the discrepancies of timeline and geography, because your life will totally expand if
It's
you have
the
parents living in different states.
Well, I mean, moving around so much, I'd imagine being a kid, it's not easy, and probably I'm guessing your music was a great way to get through all of it. When did you become? When was? I guess how did music become a part of your life as a child?
Well, music. I stutter because it hit me from all sides. I had the record player with the headphones, so that's number one. I was that little kid. We'd call them now. Oh, and that little radio sitting there with the thing. Well, it was the
That's great.
hi-fi,
Yeah.
right? Just with the records going round and round. My mother, I have to give it to Twyla. She had this vision. She wanted us all to be dancers, but I wasn't going to be a dancer. And the truth is, they had enough money, my understanding, to get 2 cars. So they bought a Volkswagen, and took the second bit of money, and they bought a Steinway piano,
Wow.
little upright. And she took the rest of the extra money and bought a bicycle and put a kid seat on it. So they got a car, a Steinway, and a bicycle with a kid seat. And she was that kind of person.
Yeah. Did you learn I guess you learned the piano early and.
I did learn the piano. My mother, she had this vision. God knows where she got this. She was right though. Her point was, if you can play the piano, that's the gateway.
Yeah.
And it is the only instrument other than the harp where you can see the entire situation. So yeah, I was the kid chained to the piano, playing the songs for the recital. My dad had a guitar, and I just sat in the corner playing the guitar. Probably came to nothing. I don't remember making. I'm sure it was just like music therapy. Put her in the corner, but it was the piano.
Wow. How old were you when you started playing?
About 5 or 6.
Wow. So, and what did you listen to then? What kind of inspired you? What did your parents listen to as far as music that said like this is what I love, this type of music?
My parents they were an interesting crew because they valued music, but I don't think that they were as addicted to music as I was.
Yeah.
They had everything. I think in this culture, you are an Elvis person or a Frank Sinatra person of that generation, and my mother was not a Frank Sinatra person. She was pure Elvis.
That's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean
You
I
could tell
think
yeah.
it's really a break, and because she was an Elvis person, she wasn't so much of a Beatles person, but I wouldn't say begrudgingly, but she knew that I had to have the Beatles records, and so we had that too, but not because that was her love.
Yeah. Just because it was. Yeah.
I think if I think if you interviewed people, it's hard to be. You were one or the other, but she could see the joy. But we didn't. I didn't have the. No, I didn't have the love of the chairman until I lived in New York for real. I mean, you don't start going to Frank Sinatra until
I
you
feel
go
like
deep
that's
here.
a regional thing
Oh.
almost with Frank, and you grew up in New York,
Oh.
and you're like, wait,
No,
all
it's
right.
brilliant.
Yeah.
It's expensive music. You feel that orchestra. I cooked to him. It's brilliant. But I didn't get that, and my mother was not of that. So she was Elvis. Bought the Beatles begrudgingly. Knew it was right. Bought Stones records because it was good rock and roll. And then they had an absolute apoplectic breakdown in the 70s when I loved the rock band Kiss.
Oh, wow.
No, they hated it because who in the hell could listen to that all the time? And I can remember them trying to like bait and switch the records and be like, oh.
That's funny.
And the one thing.
How about this?
No, they were bait and switching because
I don't know where the Kiss record went. I guess it's gone.
They drove them nuts. But the one thing that took this is they would bait and switch those records. And they weren't even really into it. They were into other art projects. My dad's a photographer. My mother was a dancer. They didn't really care. But the one thing that took was he went out in the dark and got like the Elton John's Greatest Hits Volume 2. The one that he's got like The Bitch's Back, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, Someone Saved My Life Tonight. That worked. And that was enough to get me off that absolute downward spiral to all the Kiss records.
It's a great story. So you really come from a very, it's nice that you came from a family that valued the arts, it seems like, where even
Oh,
photography and, even dancing, the
they
whole
were
thing.
very dear about
Yeah,
that.
and that's important to, especially when you're flying all around. And how do you think growing up, especially in Wyoming, and because to me, when it's interesting when I was thinking about this interview and Homegrown, and it's about Long Island artists. It's like, well, you didn't grow up here, but it's amazing that you have all these experiences because that makes you who you are. What is it like? What is the music scene like growing up? When did you become a part of that in Wyoming and those areas? At
Uh,
what age?
that's another great question. So I didn't really know about the Wyoming music scene until I was in my 20s. What happened was after, well, I don't even know how to condense this. I came back to Wyoming after college. My first job out of college was as a U.S. government bartender. Now you can't make this stuff
Hmm.
up. I know it's going to be hard to. This is like a macro timeline, but I mean this is some Wayne's World stuff here. But again, first job after college, I go to the Alps to become a U.S. government bartender. It was outside of Munich in Garmisch-Partenkirchen. I was a skier,
Wow.
and so it was perfect. And that's we could do a whole show on how I got there anyway. Okay. So there I am in the Alps, living the whole expat life, traveling, skiing, living this athletic party music lifestyle, best thing ever. And one of the trips, I got malaria. I got cerebral malaria. Can't make this up either. And I was laid low. Okay. Uh I know that's you're shocked. I see your face. It's like, well, how in the hell did we get there from Wyoming? So again, Wayne's World, just and we are in community access television. So basically, I was pretty toast. I mean, I was
Yeah.
done in. So I went to Wyoming to stay with my grandparents to get my sea legs back. And there's so and out of this trippy malaria thing, and it's trippy. You go, I was in fevers for many days, colors.
My
Um,
goodness.
I
Yeah.
yeah, I never dropped acid, but I can only imagine this is what it's like. Okay,
Jeez.
colors. And the one thing, it was biblical. I came out of this, I don't even know what we call it, a trip, a trance, and it was do music. I had
Wow.
always done it, but it was like, there's no more time. So when I came back to Wyoming
So,
with my
so that
little,
was the moment. It took
oh,
a
it was
yeah. That's
biblical. I don't know. It just, if
we're
somebody said, what was that like? I said, I don't really remember. It was brilliant. And all I have is the messages do music. And so I went to Wyoming. And of course, it's laughable because who in the hell would go to Wyoming for some music? I mean, it's laughable, Harry. Oh, we're going to go to the music capital of the world. And from there, it literally
Wyoming.
made a record in a strip mall. And there you go. That's
And that
literally the
was
story.
what were you doing before? Was it music just kind of a hobby, or was it playing in bands and?
I was the chick singer who did we'd stereotype. I was that chick singer that did every cover under the sun and, trying to remember all the words to American Pie, and that kind of thing. And
Had you written? Had you
yeah,
like to like
I
sit down
started
and write
writing
songs?
that's a great, I started writing my own songs in like sixth grade.
Oh,
Uh, so I was always doing that. But, being the chick singer, I had to learn all these covers. I had to cram and learn things I didn't write. And I was that person. And we'd have ladies' night with Inda, and we'd sing, everything from John Denver to James Taylor to American Pie to, you know.
did you want to make the decision, or were you like scared to make the decision, or what? Because it clearly waking up from malaria and seeing not your life flash before your eyes, but you realizing, look, I gotta make a choice here, of what I want to do. Um, did you even consider doing music as a career before that, or?
I did, and I can see it in your eyes. You're like, how the hell did we go from Wyoming to malaria to the Alps? I know, it's far afield, and that's a great question. I always knew I was going to do music.
Yeah, because I feel like you did.
I
You
did.
just
I
had to
always
get
knew
there
it.
on
No,
your
and
own
I always
timeline.
did, and I did it in college. And I was a chick singer in college too. I didn't even really want to go to university. I wanted to go play music, and that just was not going to happen. That just was not an option.
Yeah.
And so I knew that would happen. People would say, "Oh, when are you going to really take music serious?" But it was hard to do that full time and ski and have that fellowship and
Have,
travel. I mean, we're having a ball. Why would you want to do music full time? I mean, really?
no, you weren't ready yet, and that's
No, we were
exactly it. The
skiing and
timing wasn't there
traveling
yet.
and
Yeah.
living this amazing community. Who in the hell would want to be a professional musician?
Well, we have to. I do want to ask you about the Alps and how you got there. We'll get there, but
I
let's
do
do a song.
apologize.
No,
I'm sure
I'm
you were
very.
looking for like, well,
I'm very. No, this is actually really interesting because everyone has a different journey. To when they, you hear musicians when they're 6 and that they know exactly what they want to do and
oh, I
they
knew. I
fight
knew
towards it.
the second
But
I
this
put some
is,
headphones on my
yeah.
head and listened to some soundtrack from probably, a movie it was, like The Sting, I knew I'd do music. I didn't know what the hell that meant, but I knew I would do music completely.
Why don't we do a song right now? We're a part of the Homegrown LTV.
So you can collect yourself.
I guess I have to think a little bit to where we go next. But no, it's really unique and it's a great journey because everyone and this is what I love about this opportunity is you get to hear these stories because I mean in the past we talked to Kerry Carney, he was in Russia and all of a sudden and it's nice to I'm curious how you got to the Alps and it sounds like you had a job and this and that, but at the same time this is what makes you and you take all of that and bring it here to the East End of Long Island and kind of grow that, and it's really been amazing what you've done over the past 17 years here building that. So
you
can't
don't
wait to
even
talk
know what
more.
you're doing. I absolutely hear you. And you don't even know that. And that's the one thing. And all that time. And it's not only now at this age you can see that you're just soaking it in.
Kind of makes sense now.
It now makes
but
perfect
during
sense.
it doesn't make
Now I'm ready to be 20 and have that energy and just go tour and play 5 nights a year and tell these stories as outlandish as they are. So now I'm in that reflective.
Now's the chance.
Right?
Well, thank you very much for doing this. This is fun.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll play. That's a good intro into. I'm gonna play the song called Casper, which probably at the end you have probably 5 images or 5 songs, if maybe 1. This will always be in one of my top. I think it's probably my favorite of all my. This will be with me forever. It's called Casper, and this is where I landed after malaria, and this is where my parents grew up in Casper. Both my maternal and paternal grandparents, Casper. My brother and sister, they live in Wyoming. This is kind of Old Divide Gorge as it gets. So this is a good time to play Casper.
Perfect.
Driving into Casper off the exit out of drive, looking for a lover in the middle of the night, and I have seen you in the headlamps, lights off 25, and I have seen you in the faces and the smiles, and I thought that I would find you through the miles in the arms of my hometown. I'm too tired to call you, I'm strung out from the road, 'cause I've lost my pride and I've lost my drive, and now it's time to crawl to the arms of my hometown for a while. Down by the river at the old Ramada Inn, my grandma worked 2 shifts. She's waitressing to raise both those kids, and my other granddaddy worked the oil fields. Had a business out of town where he was renting cars. And both worked hard to find redemption and a passage out of town. I'm too tired to call you, I'm strung out from the road, 'cause I've lost my pride, lost my drive, and now it's time to crawl to the arms of my hometown for a while. Yeah! Cause I'm driving out of Casper, middle of the night. Thought I saw you standing there, the exit out of drive. I have seen you in smiles from the kindness off this stage, yeah. And you're working hard to find redemption, passage out of town. I'm too tired to call you, I'm strung out from the road, 'cause I've lost my pride and I've lost my drive, and now it's time to crawl to the arms of my hometown for a while. I'm too tired to call you, I'm strung out from the road now, 'cause I've lost my pride and I've lost my drive, and now it's time to crawl to the arms of my hometown for a while. For a while. Bam, 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 for a while.
Inda Eaton and Casper on Homegrown here on
Thank you.
LTV. Have to ask, how often do you get back home to Casper?
Before the rapture, I was going back about 5 times a year,
Wow.
just to play and also to do work in the schools. We have a program called Ideas to Inspire, where we were meeting regularly with the kids and the community. And I miss that. I mean, I do. For so many reasons, but I miss that like you don't know. And that is there's no substitute for just getting the hell out of town.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Great song and really interesting to hear. I'm curious the different. Well,
I know I've thrown you off track.
I have many
I throw
questions.
you off track now. You're like, what
it's like,
in the
wait.
hell is she
No.
talking about?
So all right. So we wake up from the malaria.
Right.
You're like, music. This is what I have to do. I guess what did that mean? What was the next step that you took to say, all right, I need to. If this is going to be how I pay the bills, so to speak. What was your next step?
Well, I think that's a fascinating question, especially if you look at the time, because today you'd probably Google that. There'd be so many resources.
It's a YouTube video.
Oh,
on how
you'd
to
start
do it.
Googling. Somebody would have told you their story, and I'm a Google recidivist. I mean, I use that like the United States Library of Google. So in that time, no, there's not. It's only word of mouth, and so the decision in a way was made for me because I wasn't really that well. The whole thing about the malaria deal is even when you come out of your fever, I mean, I wasn't well.
Wow.
And that was fascinating to me because when I was 22, 23. So I was a going Jessie. Hell, I had just climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. So I was I was in fighting shape. You know, I was when I really came down with the sickness, I was skiing. I was in Val d'Isere. So it's not like I wasn't youthful, but it really was a lesson thinking, oh, well, the fever will break and I'll just be no.
How long did it take to fully recover?
It took a long time. And my mind just skipped when I was telling you this. It probably reminds me of what it's like now to have the virus and that you may be done with it. But I mean, it's not like, oh, well, the fever's over or whatever the hell the thing's over. And you're just, no, it shellacked me. It completely, it surprised me. 1 minute you're climbing a mountain and the next minute you're doing calisthenics to see if you can make it to the hospital lobby as an exercise before you have to pass out. So that my mind just skipped like, wow, that must be what it's like now.
I was just thinking that too. It's, you don't know the real, everyone's like, oh, you're recovered. But
right, the fever's over. And I had that whole thing, like, I do remember they couldn't get the fever to break and I had to be dipped in that ice. It was, they had to do the ice packets. It's pretty draconian, but it was the whole ice dip thing. I was air evac to a tropical disease center in the middle of a blizzard in Munich, near Munich. I had some German, but not hospital German. And I do remember we had to do that whole submersion in the ice. So you say, after you come out of that, how music and how do you do that?
You're just happy to be alive at
Well,
that point.
I was, but I'll tell you, I think that near-death thing is a real leap of faith. And I just knew in my heart that it would work out. And so I just put one foot in front of the other, and I had to go to Casper to go stay with my grandparents. I was mortified. I'd been living, as an independent person. I was mortified to have to go live
Back home,
Of course, nobody likes that. And now that's what we do in the state of affairs. Yeah. But I went home, and I literally, would just talk to people, and I would trace around what's the music scene. I kid you not. Excuse me. They had a placemat out, paper placemats at a local restaurant advertising
Like
an
a
art
diner, yeah.
series.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
like a
A little
diner.
thing in
Yeah,
there.
yeah. And there was a placemat, and part of their marketing was they had different people, that would be on a different date, and
Yeah.
a couple of them caught my eye, and somebody offhandedly mentioned, "Oh, you should talk to Spencer," and he was one of the people on the placemat, and I just was so free spirited about it. I didn't think I cold called. I got the number, cold called. I don't never do that today. I cold called, asked if I could visit with them, and that just started the concept of what you would do. And he had had a long troubadour career already. He knew things about South by Southwest. They had been to the Kerrville Folk Festival. They had done all these troubadour things one does as a singer-songwriter. So and Marilyn, his wife, was involved with the Subdudes, and they
Okay.
had a connection, a life in Louisiana as well. And they just set me on this troubadour's path. That how would you know? I mean, it really, there's no book. I mean, yeah, today there's books, Harry.
Yeah, but
There are
not
books now.
really, because those books will be rewritten numerous times. There is no set path for anything in this, especially in music, in theory. But it was interesting. It sounds like Spencer was really one of your first mentors
He was a
along
huge
this
mentor,
process. Yeah.
and I'm sure a big pain in the ass to him, but he was. He had also mentored, I don't know the whole story, but he had mentored Michelle Schacht as well. She was out doing troubadour stuff. So I was probably the second chick singer they had run into.
Well, I'm curious what it's like, the challenges you ran into being a woman in this field too, because it is clearly it's not easy it's not easy a career anyway, but you're also fighting a couple battles along the way.
You ask about the woman thing, and it's only coming clear to me how difficult it was. I did not know. And you got to think at the time that I'm there, I'm shipwrecked, uh, making music. Also, the thing about Spencer was he was all doing original tunes. He had done the rock and roll thing. He had gone through the phases of what people do, and he was dedicated to original music, which is a
That's great.
huge thing. It gave me permission because up until then, you are hired to be the band to play Mustang Sally. You have to. That's how you come up. You have you. We all do it. But he had crossed over into giving shows, so I could not have come into a more perfect person. You bring up being a woman. Well, Ani DeFranco had started her Righteous Babe concept, but even that was a whisper. It wasn't like you were Googling it. It was on the cover, I remember, Ms. Magazine or whatever. But there wasn't that much information. It was kind of a rumor. I look back now, and even to this day, it for me to be a woman doing this is almost as fanciful as coming out of a coma from malaria and saying, well, I'm going to go make a record in a strip mall in Casper. It's all so ridiculous, but when you don't think it's not ridiculous, it
No, it's
isn't.
amazing what you can do. Yeah, when you
No,
don't
it
think about it.
isn't.
Yeah.
And I think another thing on the woman deal, I wasn't, well, first of all, it's not even that wasn't even that I was openly gay. I don't think I knew I was gay. So there's the two parts to that thing. So I didn't know I was gay. So how can you be out if you don't know you're gay? So there's that whole thing. And then that's happening at the time. Matthew Shepard, who was
That's
from
right.
Casper, Wyoming. Nobody remembers that,
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a lot
just
of
put it
that
together.
centers
Yeah.
around Laramie, but Matthew was from Casper. So that was going on.
Were you based out of Casper up until when you moved to Long Island? Or?
No. No. I lived in Phoenix,
Okay.
and so that's another bit of a chapter. So,
But you were going back 5 times a year, it sounds like, on a regular basis. Yeah.
I think maybe they give you roller skates when everybody's divorced. You just have to anywhere but here, right? I mean, that probably started probably starts you. I feel most comfortable in an airplane terminal. Anyhow, you bring up a great question, and I think even to this day, right now, 2020. We don't really know what to do as a culture with women who are in rock and roll, who are out there, and then you add the next level of they're writing music, they're rocking it out. It's taken me my whole career to find a sweet spot where I am rocking it out and bringing people into the story of the song because there's no place for that. And then you look to, let's say, like a Melissa Etheridge or something, but that didn't fit either. That was encouraging, but that wasn't quite it. And to this day, that's pretty much that's the
Well,
first go-to
I
comparison.
have to imagine it's hard because you're like, well, no, that's not that's not why I got into this for that type of music or this and that. You want to be yourself
Well,
and
I
find
tell you
your
what,
own.
and
Yeah.
for look, nobody at the beginning of your career, everybody, oh, I'm not, I don't want to be compared. Well, it helps. She is a chick
Yeah.
singer with a guitar who rocks out, and she's done well for herself, and she's awesome. She's amazing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's great company to say. But we are limited. We don't have much of a vocabulary that there would be a woman who plays guitar, writes songs, rocks out, but still wants you to hear the song.
Coming from a male perspective and a mindset, what was it like? Because you read about like Lilith Fair when that started, and that had to be, I'd imagine, a great moment to see something different and see it change as the music industry evolved, and gave more chances to women to in more opportunities.
Lilith Fair was so encouraging, and I just love. I mean, those Sarah McLachlan records. Oh my God, who doesn't love those? I mean, that was very encouraging, and it seemed like, oh, that'd be the perfect way in, but we couldn't get it in, and that's another good segue to out here in the East End. Just one of my besties is Nancy Atlas, because how funny is that we would be two of us out here that are of the same age,
Yeah.
both women, both writing songs, and we have similar stories about how we both attempted to get in on that Lilith Fair energy, but it just wasn't the timing.
Yeah. And I guess timing is everything, and maybe it wasn't right.
It is,
Yeah.
but there aren't that many women. There just aren't. And so that's another thing I laugh about beyond the music community, beyond loving everybody in our neighborhood and our world that we have. It's just amazing to have the music community and then take it to another level where Nance and I can bounce ideas off of each other. And some of our career pitfalls and ups and downs are so similarly close and laughable. It's been like a support group.
When working with Spencer as your mentor
Yep.
at the time, were you? I'd imagine you were writing songs, and what were your inspirations for that? What did you, I guess, What did you want to write about at the time and get out there? What was your voice?
When I met Spencer after Malay, I had an entire ready to go. Excuse me. When I met Spencer, I had an entire album just ready to go. I had the entire, I don't even know how many songs, 11, 13. And the album was Thin Fine Line because that was the title track. And it was ready to go. And honest to God, even before I met Spencer. And then he produced that. And now I was thinking about it. We were putting together we're outdoor trying to put together an outdoor space. If I could go back, I would have marketed, not marketing, I would have told a story about Garmisch. I would have told about the Alps because the songs are all about that. They're all about this expat skiing off cliffs, pure adventure, no helmets, no seatbelt, wild ass adventure. I would have just made the entire photography. I would have just delved into that. It was a lost concept of storytelling. If you look at the album now, it's classic. It's got imagery from Wyoming. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful record, but it doesn't tell the story of all that wanderlust. And that's what that record is all about. It's all about that. I mean, stories of, cafeteria traying down an Austrian Alp. It's kind of like cow tipping. You wonder, do people really ride cafeteria trays down an Alp? And we did. And I wrote a song about that. I wish I could play the full thing right now. I don't know if I can even remember it, but that's where my head was. My head and heart was in adventure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why don't we do another song?
I wish now I said that.
Yeah, I know. I was like, wait, you don't have to do that one, but let's do another track here on Homegrown with Inda Eaton.
You know what? I don't even think I get through the whole song, but that's another segue because I told you about this record. It was called Thin Fine Line. And it was recorded at a strip mall in Casper, Wyoming. And then they taught me like how to get press, how to book your own tour.
Wow.
And so I did college venues. I mean, it was really mind-blowing. So I don't even know if I can get through the whole song, but this was the title track. I've been smothered by affection, spurned by rejection, standing in this dust and I'm calling your name. Letter was a message as it barely hit the trash. Standing in this dust and I'm calling your name. I've been high, low, there's just nowhere to turn. Laugh till you cry, it's a thin, fine line. Smiles can't avoid all the questions that I ask. Standing in this dust and I'm calling your name now. At least I can get through the guitar part. That was the most, that was the hook there, was that guitar part. And now I'm like tripping on like my mind. Honest to God, I think I stole that from the Montreux Jazz Festival. We actually went to that was part of the road
Nice.
tripping there. And I think you get that like smoke on the water or that.
When did you make, you said you made that record at a strip ball in Casper. When was that one of your first, was that your first record? Or
It was my first record.
yeah.
It was 1995. And I say strip mall, but that really was a lot of, look, you know, I'm a big fish storyteller. As the fish gets bigger in the show, that's what we do. But it really wasn't a strip mall. Catty corner from an Albertsons grocery store. And it's not the same ownership, but it still exists today. Hilltop Music. And it's the kind of place in America, I still have them, where you would go if your kid played clarinet and you wanted to either buy or rent a clarinet for the season.
It's the Family Melody Center of Casper, Wyoming.
It is. And if you're in 6th grade and the music teacher says, you know, you're going to need those plastic recorders from the Suzuki company, you'd truck on down there and get yourself a plastic recorder. And at the time, they had some recording booths in the back. That was their thing. And they really were ahead of their time because, I mean, technology, I mean, we are really delusional to think what it was like compared to what it is now.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because I was thinking about how you just did your last record. Literally, if I'm not mistaken, at home. And everything in your house. So it's amazing to think that where it was, where we were grateful to have the booth in the strip mall. But now you can do it anywhere, it feels like.
You can, and we should talk about that. These people, they were next level because I didn't even think about it at the time, but here we are in Casper, Wyoming, and people had come together. I think Larry ran it, Larry owned it, is his name, and Marv, I can't even think of his last name, but here's the funny thing about Marv. There's always a Marv in every town too. Marv had been a union musician, Nashville session player, played bass was his gig, and Marv had done it all. And Marv in fact, had gone on tour with like Reba McEntire. And as a union musician, if they weren't on the road or playing, they had to put in X amount of hours learning that material. So that's the background he came from. So when I walked in, and I think by myself first and then Spencer, I mean, they were ready to, I remember what it was, 22, 23. They were ready to record somebody. I think they needed a guinea pig. Really.
That's perfect. It's all about timing. That's how it all
works.
Oh,
it was wild. I don't think I could follow. I remember they put the click track on the metronome. And I mean, I was like I was the bucking bronco. It's like, what? A click track? And we had to find ways that I could follow the click track or something so we could keep the whole thing together. I mean, it was just pandemonium. And it's a very sweet record, actually.
It's nice because I'd imagine you had worked on those songs for so long. They were there, and to finally put them together on a record. What was the second record like, though? Because you always hear about everyone has these songs. They have their whole life almost preparing for that first album. And then you're like, all right, I have to do something different. What did you want to do after that?
I wanted to keep making music. And actually, the second thing I ever put out was a piano record. And it was just all piano compositions. And
I feel like your mom would have been proud.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She always loved that piano. She wanted to get that investment back. Oh, absolutely.
It's like, I did the piano record.
If you give up your car for Steinway, you want the money back. You know what I'm saying? And you'll chain your kid to the Steinway to get that. And I bring that up. It was called Seasons. We still have it in copy. That helped because I just made that up. It was somebody was doing a video project or a movie project locally, and they needed a soundtrack. And I thought, well, hell, we'll bring down some recording equipment. We'll tune up the Steinway at the college, and I'll just play. I'll think good thoughts. I'll kind of think of a thematic concept. We'll tape it, and that's it. that helped because it was really about just do it energy. And that was the first time, just do it. If you have a great microphone, a tuned up piano, just do it. I'm not saying it's brilliant work, but it pushed me to the idea of why not now? So,
There's power there to
well, there
actually,
is, you know, and
because
we're the,
everyone talks about doing a record or doing this and that, but a lot of people just don't, like you said, just don't do it. So
you don't. And again, you have to get the context, which brings us to where we are now today, too, which is this was all done without label support. This was done without publishing support. This was just done for pure, just gonna do it. You know, I don't think about the malaria story often, but I did come out of the coma, and the concept was, well, you can live through this, and you can climb Kilimanjaro, and go with your best friend from childhood and traipse around Africa on the back of a Land Rover that you bought, and fix that at the same time, fix flat tires, and become a Land Rover mechanic and live in a tent in the middle of Africa. You probably can do anything. And that was my mindset. And I look back now with no Google, geez, I mean, and maybe that's the mindset now. It was always the thing of like, well, we're just going to do this. We're going to make original music. And I did see it done. I mean, Spencer had done it.
yeah.
He was booking gigs. He was, it was book 3 months out, get the gigs, get the press, go to the tour. So it was working. So I saw empirical evidence.
Yeah.
The next studio project happened in New Orleans because they had moved back. And that was the next level. And that's where we worked with Johnny Vodakovich as a drummer and a lot of the Radiator Subdudes people.
What year was that? Was that later in the 90s?
That would have been 98.
Yeah.
And there was a new batch of songs, and that was called Never Too Late to Fly. And that's a great record. That's it's out of print. I see it sometimes on Amazon. That's the best is you see it like as a used copy for $1.99. People thought so high of it. It's like, dear Betty, dear Jim, thank you so much. And they took it and put it in a bargain bin.
Yeah.
eBay. I'm talking bargain bin.
That's
like,
funny.
yeah. So a couple of years later, and it was a great record, and that was exciting too. And then that gets back into that Lilith Fair era. That would have been a perfect timing, but it wasn't to be.
So you were all right. So you're moving around. You went to New Orleans for a bit,
Train wreck.
late 90s.
Harry, you're
moving
you
around.
are going to break me. You're going to Leslie Stahl me. By the time we're done, it'll be
we're-
60 minutes, and I'll be crying. What a train wreck of a career.
No, what's interesting to see your path before, because I mean, you mentioned like climbing. It's in Africa and a Land Rover, and I don't know. We only have an hour, so I have to kind of. But I want to because you had such amazing life experiences before you even showed up at the Talk House in 2003. Had you been to New York before then, or?
I had, and I did. I went to school in Boston, so
Okay, all right. So
that
you're
was always
familiar
our
with the
playground to go to.
northeast
Oh, Boston was
corridor.
shut down at 10 or 12 or something, so it was always just a good, wicked time to go to New York where nothing shut down. That was our big, like, people ask me wasn't Boston like yeah, Boston was fun, and we had a ball, but it's not a real rockin' town
Yeah, so you
at
just
night.
head down and go to New York City.
Yeah, we couldn't run fast enough.
So you were out of New Orleans, if I'm not mistaken, working on records, and you were out obviously doing tours and stuff, and you found your way to the Talk House. Had you done another record before then, or what did you?
In a nutshell, it's like there's the Wyoming experience. I based out of there.
Yeah.
I made the record in New Orleans. I really could have fallen in love with that even more. I think had I gone to school there, man, I don't think I'd ever have left. I mean, the food, once you start that food, you get on that gumbo, you're done. I remember there was a Whole Foods where I was staying. I was staying in renting a house. There was a Whole Foods down the way, and so of course you're trying your little couscous and your little kale, and I kept that up for 7 days, and then once you get on that gumbo and the bread pudding and that train.
I feel like the only place you can go is New York after that.
Well, God knows where you go. I know I never would have left, and probably I don't even know what kind of vampire, maybe like rehabs would have had to happen. I don't think I would have ever left. I mean, once you start flipping your day into the night, and I'm not a night person, but I was in New Orleans, and the music and the food and the music and the inspiration, why you would never leave.
Now, were you looking to? I don't want to say settle down per se, but obviously you fell in love and you met your wife. When did you meet her as far as in relation to the, because I think you said at the Talk House in 2003.
Ultimately, I could have never. I don't know how this works. I don't know if about straight relationships, but I think somebody told me that. So I don't know if this is true or not, but this is maybe it's a cliche. I don't know. But when you come out and you're gay, I don't know if the first relationship is doable. I don't know. But I've heard that. I've read that in the book. I've Googled that, or I would have Googled it had at the time. There's so much pressure for that first, long term, let's call it marriage relationship. I don't know if that's gonna work. That's a lot of
Yeah.
pressure to wake up one morning and all of a sudden you're one of the others. That's a lot of pressure. So I don't think I think I met Amory at the right time. I think
Mm.
our relationship works now. We've been married. I've been married since 2011. We've been together since 2003. I don't think that would have ever worked as the first time relationship. There's just no way.
Yeah.
And also the music career, this songwriting, this whatever this is, music art as a career, and that's a crazy life. That tanks relationships. Life tanks relationships. I don't know. That was a mess. I think I could only be now in Long Island with Amory, but it took a long time to get to this place.
How long after your Talk House gig did you move here? After that show? Or-
It was in 2003, and so life had gone on, and disruptions and eruptions and dramas and traumas, and we'd have to be deep into the coffee or deep into the beer to tell that story another time, and we will maybe.
Another homegrown, yes.
Harry, we'll have to book some time for it.
Like I said, we don't have that
I
much
know,
more.
you poor thing. You asked one question, and all of a sudden we're in malaria, and now we're talking
No,
about
this is fun.
you poor thing. What did happen though? I didn't know if I wanted to live here because it's not my people. I mean, this is not my place.
I was going to ask, there is such a difference. I don't
Oh,
imagine there's a similarity
day.
too, but in certain threads of people. But at the same time, it's such a different environment and a way of life than the
Oh, it's.
Hamptons and the East End of Long Island.
I know it is. This is a complete. This is Mars from where I come from. The only thing that makes it, I think the reason it works is home is where the heart is, and also this is so rural.
Yeah.
We're not dealing with some of the urban energy and the sounds and as the sensitivity. We have blue skies here. We have open spaces. I think that's why our life works together. I don't
Yeah.
think I could be a city dweller. I've done it and I don't think I love it, but I don't think that's my.
No, you almost get the best of all the world out here.
Don't we?
Like we talked about, as far as there's so many different types of people that come together to make the community out here. But it's like you said, it can be rural in certain areas. You make
Well,
a left turn, and all of a sudden, it's
it can be rural. What really kind of hooked me in beyond the fact knowing the Talk House was here. No, I could see the music community, but when you come here, it's not like you just walk over the Talk House and start doing shows every week. I mean, it takes a second. What made it possible is the Children's Museum was coming together, and I did some of the original voiceovers and was able to exercise my creativity behind the scenes and more in a studio format and do composition and get more into technology and more into producing.
That's interesting because you also mentioned earlier that you were heavily involved in
Poor
Wyoming
thing.
with
Harry,
teaching.
you're
No,
go-
but it seems like that's a passion of yours because I saw your face light up, and that fact that you seem to really miss the fact that you can't go back there right now
Oh,
and to educate. What's that like to be able to? You've been through this quote career for a while now. You've seen a lot of different aspects of it. It must be rewarding to give back and to help new musicians kind of figure out who they are, find their voice.
I sit in the best of all worlds because everybody, especially in this time, they will tell you the secret sauce of this whole thing we do are people. So I think the secret sauce, definitely the shows, and definitely the education with the peoples. There's the peoples. There's no replication for the secret sauce. In coming here and working with the Children's Museum and some other projects, I had to go behind the scenes. I had to go in a producer mode and sit with technology. I never did that before. Never would have been called. In fact, I sat with technology and the studio side before things got even easier. I mean, now, we would probably make a better quality sounding record with my iPhone than we could with the technology than when my first record. That's just a fact. Um, so I loved that too. And that was another way to go, wow, maybe if I'm not performing or doing that, I can find a love in producing and being behind the scenes and making music that way. So here we come full circle. That that evolved with the teaching. We do recording, writing, producing. So if it's not on stage, if it's not behind the scenes, if it's not with students, uh, it's about storytelling, and that has made the whole thing so rich. So then we get back to where we were talking about making a record in the backyard and making music. Now it's really possible because you can take the production know-how, you can take some of the tools, but if you don't have a story, you got nothing. If you can't tell a story with a ballpoint pen or a Polaroid, you got nothing, or a guitar. So now coming full circle from the shows, the mishaps of touring, the mishaps of finding out who in the hell I am, all of that almost painful trudging through the mud puts me in a place now where it's about the story, and that will never, ever end. So it's not predicated. We don't have to have a this or that. But I do have to tell you, I miss the people. I mean, that's the magic sauce.
Well,
Ugh.
your last record was very personal, Shelter in Place, and you did this at home amongst a lot of different things in your life that were occurring. What was the main inspiration for it? It seems prophetic now with the title, and it's interesting to see how people have really embraced it over the past few months. And
By
I
the way,
think
thank you for playing cuts. I
it
know
was
you.
yeah,
I hear it.
it was
People
the
drop a dime and they're like, they're playing it.
it's the
Thank you.
last show before everything shut down too, if I'm not mistaken, at Bay Street. And clearly you miss it. What was it like? And just from my perspective, it sounds like you really have taken every life's lessons and almost I don't say poured it into this record, but all of your records. But it's interesting to see where you are right now, where you really can have a really positive effect on musicians and artists
Oh.
to let them find their own story. You've been through a lot of different places, even getting on a plane at 6, and flying to California and Wyoming and this and that. You have done really an amazing job getting into this business, and we talked about how it's not easy for a woman and different. So I'm really impressed talking to you, and thank you for taking the time to do this. And it's kind of cool because it
Oh.
almost feels now you can look back and not that you know what you're doing now as opposed to 5 years ago or 17 years ago, but it's interesting to see how it really has all added up to who you are today. And you really are an incredibly passionate about life is really what
Oh.
it's fun to talk to you about. We should do one more song, and I have a couple more questions because I do want to ask you about Shelter in Place.
I want to talk again. Thank you for playing the cuts, and we'll probably be promoting that. It seems like every time we go promote the record, a new cataclysm happens. So I'll probably be like 80 years
The
old. I'll be
second
like, we're
wave.
still playing cuts from Shelter in Place that we made in the back.
What was the before you do a song? What was the inspiration behind this record, or a little backstory?
I keep growing into what that is, and now it all makes sense. Much like, well, I don't know if people really make records so much, but I like to. I think there's a thematic concept in an album when you start putting these chapters together. They're short stories, and what I'm finding is you end up growing into them. You think you know what you wrote, and then you grow into that, and then you think you know what that was, and then you grow into that. So I knew these songs were coming together. We took a road trip across the country right after the election, and here we are 4 years later, right now, and if you're listening tonight at home, same kind of energy, this unknown. We took this road trip across the country with a puppy, which is ridiculous at Christmas. I mean, who in the hell does that? That's just flat out ridiculous. And it came to me, we're just sheltering in place. And we're going to continue to shelter in place. We're shocked. We're not speaking to each other. We still have our lawn signs out. We are sheltering in place, waiting for a change that we can't define. And so that enough was like, wow, that's either a tour or a record or a concert. I don't know, but shelter in place, that was enough. And then you start growing into it. And then God, the then you know the reason why you're really making is through is resilience. And then we had such a loss. My grandmother and mother died literally a year apart to the week. So then you grow into that concept. And at the end of the day, I'm left with music is healing, good is simple, simple is hard. And so all that stories, all that malaria and the producers and the productions and the blah, blah, blah ginger, I think it comes down to there's an acoustic guitar, uh, music heals. We have stories to tell that resonate with others. And it almost becomes like, well, for whatever it's worth, this is a song I wrote about ba ba ba, and maybe this strikes a chord. And at the end of the day, I think you come full circle. That's as simple as it is. Yeah. Music heals, and this is a story that happened to us. Maybe you understand. And I think it gets convoluted in your journey, and then it just gets simple.
A very, very good way to put it. So let's do a song from the record right now before we wrap up with Inda Eaton here on Homegrown on LTV.
This is a good segue. Hell, I didn't mean I should have kept. That's, if you Google that, you're supposed to keep your stories into simple context, and I've taken us to too many places today, so you're
not
being
at
very
all.
sweet.
We might have to do a part 2 and 7 down the road, but this is great. It's great to actually get to know you and talk to you.
I feel the same. Thank you. Although I didn't get to break you down enough. Didn't get to shrink you.
That's another Homegrown. That's a behind the scenes.
I want to host next time. I'm hosting, and I'll do reverb on my voice.
All right. Yeah. Well, I would hope so.
This is a good segue from what we've been talking about. This is called Move So Fast, and it's on Shelter in Place. Lost a friend. Life is such a cost. There's no end, no, to the morning of the loss. Lose them every day in a war I can't explain. So far away from here. Pictures everywhere, likenesses a haunt. I feel you in my soul. Broke some bread, spilled the bottle just to cover it up, to feel you in my soul. 'Cause I move so fast just to feel no pain. Better for the distance now, I'm better for the gain. Move so fast to feel nothing at all. People telling me time to move ahead, but from where now? If the goal is just the end, I see you everywhere, from the minutes to the hours, so far away from here. Oh, 'cause I move so fast just to feel no pain. Better for the distance now, I'm better for the gain. Move so fast to feel nothing at all. Distance now, I'm better for the gain. Move so fast to feel nothing at all. Move so fast. Move so fast.
From the new album Shelter in Place, it's Inda Eaton on tonight's Homegrown here on LTV. Thank you for doing this. We're going to wrap up. I do have one more question for you. Nothing to do with music, but you mentioned it a few times. It's a two-part question. What inspired you to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, and what was it like? Because I think a lot of people want to do it. They're thinking, all right, but like, how did you find yourself there? How long did it take?
Kilimanjaro. I know that's the Kili. So it dovetails in good to my energy lately, which is momentum. And I've been talking about this because you asked, how are we doing? I feel like I'm finally coming out of the quicksand
Yeah.
and I'm getting momentum. This show that you're doing, by the way, thank you.
Oh, please, thank you.
This is momentum. When we have a crisis or something to process, we musicians, we artists, we want to get together and we want to play music, and music connects us. And lately we've been separated. We have to be, we have been. And so it's about momentum. So I thank you. Kilimanjaro's like that. And that is just such a good segue, which is no Google, no books, just something you want to do. And so literally when we got to the area, we started asking around. And it's in a day where you go to cafes or you go to bars or you go where there's expats or where there's campers and you start talking around and they just share what the experience was.
Wow.
And you put it together that you need a permit. You put it together that you go get yourself a guide and you sit in that town. This is old school.
Yeah.
You sit in that town till you get that going. And we did. And so I think it's at about 700, maybe elevation, maybe. I'll go redo maybe it's higher to
Of course,
start.
this is pre-iPhone, so I feel like everyone would be up there with their phones taking pictures now.
They would.
Yeah.
And so
you almost missed something then.
no, so we found ourselves a guide. You go 3 days up. You pack the most minimal situation, sleeping bag, and you go stay in huts. So the first night, I don't know what elevation we're at. The second night, and by the second night, you are freezing to death. You have to make deals with yourself to even go to the bathroom because you're freezing. The third night before the summit, I think the trick is we went to bed at 7 o'clock at night, 5 o'clock, and because you're going to get up at 1 o'clock in the morning, you have to go early because the winds can come up, things can change, and when you do go walk up Kilimanjaro, you realize that once you buy the permit and get the guide, you may be canceled at any minute because the weather could change.
Yeah.
So we went. You start at midnight. I will tell you this: I lost all feeling in my feet because we weren't really packed. We were going to be there for 3 months, so I didn't have proper ski gear.
This was kind of a whim almost. Yeah.
A thoughtful whim.
Okay. Yeah. You
I lost
considered
all.
it, but
I lost all. What do you call feeling in my
oh
feet?
my gosh.
My friend, she couldn't breathe because when I tell you what you go through towards those last steps, and I will say this, I knew that probably I had frostbite, and I knew there's a good chance I would have to have digits removed. And I thought, I'll be damned if I don't go to the top. If I'm going to have to lose digits, I will go to the top. I could see it. I'm like, I'm already so screwed up. I can't feel anything. You'd have to place your feet,
Wow.
for the ankles so they wouldn't sprain.
Yeah.
And I thought, God, I'm not. I
I
can
don't
see
care. I
this.
made it this far.
And if I'm going to have to be hospitalized,
Yeah.
I'm going to the top. So that was Kilimanjaro. And then 2 days down. Then you take 2 days down. It's blissful. You're high as a kite because you've made that. And you're just warming up all the way down. And you skip. Maybe you only stay one night. You're just down's easy.
Wow. Well, thank you for. I was just curious because you mentioned it, and that's an amazing experience, and it is symbolic for everything. If you're right there, you just kept moving, and that is
It's momentum. And I
that's
think
this whole thing.
that really has. I've starting to get legs about it on the socials and a messaging because we don't really know what we're doing. And maybe this whole time with you it's jarred me because what did we do before we Googled out every next step? We just didn't. And you knew you wanted to do something, you knew where you were going, and you started talking to people, and that builds momentum, and that's how things get done.
To be continued.
There we go.
We have to do another one. Inda Eaton, thank you so much for doing this.
No, thank you.
We appreciate it. This was fun. Homegrown LTV, thanks to everyone here. Jason, Michael, everyone has done an amazing job behind the scenes. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone. I know I'm not mentioning everyone, but thank you for putting this whole thing together, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll have to spend some more. I didn't get your life story at night. That bums me out.
Behind the scenes.
Yes.
We'll get there.
I look forward to it.
Thank you so much. Inda Eaton on tonight's Homegrown. Look for it, of course, on demand everywhere. We'll link to it on EHM's site and as well, of course, LTV. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You poor thing.